Imagine you are driving your car on the highway and, when you're miles away from your destination, you can go as fast as you want to go. But let's say you're pulling into your driveway. Obviously, you have to slow down, right? You can't go 70 miles per hour into your garage. You're going to crash, right? So, Eric, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about this same logic that will apply to our retirement portfolio. Why do you say that many retirees, even pre-retirees, might be driving their portfolios too fast?
Well, hopefully they're not crashing through the the back of the garage or something. No.
Woo, all the way through.
Yeah. Well, when we bought our house, there was an older gentleman that had lived there and stuff, and they cleared out all the junk in the house to make it look nicer, but threw it all in the garage. So we couldn't see the back of the garage, and the back of the garage when we moved in, it wasn't touching the foundation because somebody had obviously gone through the garage
My
and went
gosh.
in with too much time. So yeah, no, I am familiar with that concept, but yeah, it's not, you're not supposed to, like be like some sort of Hollywood movie and slide in or have your car go sideways. Like that's not how you're supposed to run your retirement. Like slide in at the last second and be perfect. Uh,
Yeah.
no, you don't want to do that. And so lots of times you'll have too much risk, and especially one of the weird effects that people have is I always remember this from a couple that I met back in the after the dot-com days. And I said, "Well, how much is your," after the crash, it's like, "How much does your portfolio go down?" She goes, "Oh, no, I'm very conservative." Well, her husband had picked her 401k allocation, and he was super aggressive. And so even though she was older and thought she'd, lower down her risk, he had done the opposite. And so she had big losses. And, that's what you can't do right before retirement, right? You don't want to have those huge losses. So you should be kind of slowing down, right? Like you said, get before you make that turn in, slowing down and, getting some brakes, not hitting the gas and, not doesn't mean you have to like, stop in the middle of the street, right? But you do want to slow down. You do want to make sure you make the turn, make sure you can stop okay, right? And get into retirement at the right pace. So yeah, if you get too much risk, it can really come back to bite you if you don't do anything about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You don't have the time to recover that you used to. So, to help fix this, Eric, there's a famous guideline in the financial world. You know it very well, called 100 minus your age rule. So, talk about how it works.
Yeah, and you've seen people sometimes talk about, oh, should it be 110, 115? You always hear that when things are going better. So people kind of try to cheat the rule a little bit. But it basically just says how much money should you have at risk. And one problem I have with that rule is they say, well, okay, the other part would be bonds. Well, bonds still have risk. So, that part of the rule I'm not as big a fan. I think what happens is you should have more and more money guaranteed and protected, not with bonds, because bonds, unless you're holding them to maturity, that you can lose money. And we saw bonds take a huge hit in 2022. And so, yeah, what you want to do is 100 minus, say, 65 is 35. So that means, you should really be only having about 35% of your money in stocks, which, that might be a little bit low. Yeah, you could probably have a little bit more growth, but you do want to have a good portion of that money locked in, guaranteed. But today's world, you can have stuff that can average 5 to 7% on that guaranteed side of the world pretty easily. So it doesn't have to be a bank account. It doesn't have to be a savings account. It could be other things that are out there. But yeah, if you're putting it into bonds that also can drop, may not be the best way to go.
Some viewers might be thinking, well, the market always comes back eventually. We've always heard that. So tell us why relying on that market recovery is actually kind of dangerous for someone who's already retired or close to retiring.
Well, so the hard part about retiring is you're doing the opposite of what you've been doing, right? So if you're just dumping money in, you're kind of like, say you're going forward, going forward, going forward, kind of using that car example again, right? And then all of a sudden, you know, maybe you pass the parking spot or whatever. You got to back up a little bit, right? Or probably better thing is, okay, now I'm going to get off the freeway. I have to go down that ramp and do that, cloverleaf U-turn type thing, right? And now I'm going to be
Just
going,
did that recently.
yeah, and now I'm going to be going the other way. And so what happens is once you start going the other direction, you're taking that money back out. If you take money out and the market's down that month because of whatever, a president said something, the Congress did something, whatever, there's something in the world happened, and for a couple of days, the market dropped, and you took that money out to live on that month. You locked in those losses. You locked in that lower rate. You locked in all that stuff, and those shares don't come back. So really what happens is the strategy in retirement has to be very, very different because as you take that money out, those ups and downs really matter. So one of the things that we've set up is a digital toolbox where you can go grab stuff to read. I think education is super important. So these are 10 to 15 page things that are pretty easy to understand and kind of give you some food for thought. So one of them is how do I make sure my money lasts as long as I do? Am I paying too much money in taxes? Those really go along with that withdrawing money issue. You can also get a copy of my book, Worry Less Wealth. And if you want, set a time to talk to somebody in our office. So all you have to do is text word toolbox to 800-454-1184. Again, text word toolbox, 800-454-1184, or download it online with the link below.
You're listening to Wealth Creator Radio, watching Wealth Creator Radio. So happy to have you along. I'm Lou Ann Fulmer with Eric Heckman. And, it is scary to think that, you're going to work your whole lifetime. You're going to accumulate that nest egg. And then, so much of it could be lost in a matter of months, depending on what's going on with the market. So if someone is worried that maybe they have a little more risk than they should as they're listening to us, what would you recommend is the first step they should take, Eric?
Well, so you really need to have a good portion of your money in foundational assets. So foundational assets are very clearly defined by me. They are stuff that is guaranteed by something to not go away. So the only three places that can guarantee that would be the U.S. Treasury, banks, which is really using U.S. government as backup, right? And then insurance companies. And those are the three places that you can go to have guaranteed money. And if you've got enough, which would be at least 6 months of your normal spending, or maybe even up to a year or two, if you've got that money sitting there guaranteed, then you don't have to lock in those losses. You're not going to have to worry about those downturns because they're going to, they will affect your other assets, that's for sure, but they're not going to at least affect your withdrawals. And that's one of the key parts. Now, also as part of that, you might have to do something with your, withdrawal rates, right? I mean, if it came back like another 08, 09, yeah, maybe you do lower down some of that withdrawal. But it's also if you have some guaranteed lifetime money that you can keep taking, you don't have to worry about a lot of that stuff. So again, it goes back down to having a plan that covers everything in all markets and all time frames, because most of us are going to have 30, and nowadays you might even have 40 or 50 with all the advances with AI and medical technology. So you might have way longer in retirement than you did in working life. And so you got to make sure that money lasts. You got to make sure that money's there, and you got to make sure you're protected. So, I think that's one of the problems that people don't really fully understand. And most people are investment managers in this field. They're not full retirement planners. So that's why it's really critical to have somebody that you're talking to that really knows the withdrawal strategy. How do you take that money back out? And so, that's the key thing. So, if you've got questions, if you need to, uh, you know, get a plan going, if you want to get a little bit more information about that, like how much money am I spending in retirement? Will my money last as long as I do? All those great resources are up in our digital toolbox. All you have to do is text the word toolbox 800-454-1184. Again, text the word toolbox 800-454-1184, or go online and click the link below.
Coming up, we're going to talk about the safe part of your money. That's next with Eric on Wealth Creator Radio. We'll be right back with more.